Welcome to Racers Now. It's that time of year where we get a familiar face on to talk about the Arc de Triomphe. Ande Humphrey, who is now, this is, I think, our third year of getting you on to talk about all things French racing, and a good time to do so as the Arc Trials, the official Arc Trials, 3 of them are in the bag over the weekend at Longchamp, and we've got under 4 weeks to go before the big day. We're going to have the odds scrolling across the bottom there. Many of those at the top of the market ran at the weekend. Some did well, some not so well. So we're going to try and cover all of them at the top of the market and anything that might be lurking further down, particularly expert on the French challenge is going to be coming from Hump. Hump, how are you?
All good. Yeah, it's good to be that time of year again. You know, every time anybody sees my face, it's either for the wrong reason or because something in French racing is going on. And also, it might worth pointing out that depending upon when you're watching this, French racing might be the only racing you watch tomorrow afternoon.
Yes.
Being Wednesday the 10th.
Strike imminent in the UK. Right, no messing about then, Hump. We had a bit of a shake-up over the weekend. Those near the top of the market, like I say, most of them in action. Mini Hawk wasn't in action. She stayed pretty much unchanged at 5-1, the Jewel Oaks winner over on UK and Irish shores. Aventure was the most impressive winner according to the bookmakers. She was second in the big race on Arc Day last year, won the Vermeil over the weekend in good fashion, and has now shortened up to the top of the market, 9-2, best price, but generally 4-1 market leader. How impressed were you with that one? And I'm just caveating the question: is Aventure just looking us straight in the face, steering us up straight in the face? Back this horse at 4-1, 9-2, second last year, just won the best trial. Is it as simple as that?
It could be. It definitely could be, yeah. One thing, obviously, you've got to bear in mind of, you know, that this is obviously, she's a definite runner, obviously being the favourite for the race as well. I thought one thing I will say is I do think they did go slightly over the top at the weekend with some of the comments from the trainer calling her the queen of Longchamp. I thought that was a bit cringy from Christophe Furlong, and she's actually finished second at Longchamp more times than she's won there. So I'm not sure if the queen can really be called that, but there you go. One extra thing to note, obviously, as well, was the jockey, Max Guillaume, was very, very effusive. Said she did everything à la Bordel very easily, that kind of thing. I don't know if that's a rough translation, but there you go. It's very easily anyway. And it was impressive. Of course it was. You know, she pulled hard very early on. She was pulling hard for pretty much a mile, I would say, maybe even a little bit longer than that. You can see her coming into the straight. Guillaume was almost stood up in his irons for a long part of the race, but they weren't going overly fast through the opening section, and they really slowed it down coming into the false straight. But you know, look at the way she finished. I think he asked her 2 or 3, well, maybe not even 2 or 3 questions, but you know, she was easily good enough for many more lengths into that. We'll get onto Byzantine later on, but the finishing time was just 1 second behind that according to the official tracking. So you can upgrade that performance considering how well she finished as well. One thing to bear in mind, obviously, it was her first run since June, so she was coming into it awfully fresh. That could factor into, you know, the way that she pulled, and we'll give her some slack for that. But she's actually run 1 time less this year than she did last year heading into the Arc. So I think she's probably in the best shape she can be in. Did she maybe shoot the bullet out the gun too soon in regards to this race? We don't know. Obviously, the conditions may be different come the day as well. Come in October, we know what it's like around that kind of time of year. So I don't see a reason why she shouldn't be favourite. She's put in probably the best performance that we've seen over the distance so far this year. Whether that's in France or wherever you want to watch, I think that's probably the best one. So I think she could be staring us in the face, but 4-1 is quite short. I think Alpinista was the shortest before that when she won. I think she was about 130 when she went off and won in the slop a couple of years ago.
Around about 9-1-ish last year, she was for the race where she finished second. But, I mean, you can't argue with the prep. She's come out, won a Group 3 this year, Group 2 this year, second in a Group 1. Then had that 70-day break, as you allude to. Then she's gone and won the Vermeil in good fashion there. Jazora is still in the betting as well there. She's around 20-1 second behind Aventure over the weekend. World was a 1-2 favourite for that race, the Vermeil. I haven't considered, in an argument between Mini Hawk and Whirl, I would consider and have considered Mini Hawk as the main Arc hope or contender, if you like. I couldn't see a world where they would both run. I think Whirl has answered her own questions there. Tried to lead from a long way out, didn't really work out. And to go off 1-2 World in a race with Aventure, who's pretty good in her own right, Jazora, pretty good, but less so. So the form stacks up a little bit there. The two trials on the same day for the males are this Byzantine Dream from Japan. We don't need to remind our viewers how much Japan would love to win this race. And this Prix Foy, by the way, which is the over course and distance for the older boys over a mile and a half. This looked a fantastic renewal of this race to me. I don't think I've ever seen a better renewal of this. The Vermeer Group 1 for the ladies, this Prix Foy Group 2. Saucy in there. Almaqam, who has, promised a lot over on UK shores without actually delivering as yet. Los Angeles, last year's Irish Derby winner, ran 4th in last year's Arc. Map of Stars has been running in group races, etc., etc. They were all put to the sword, really, by this Byzantine Dream. It was a little bit of a bunch finish, but I thought he was the worthy winner. Caveat with him, for the trials day as a whole, fast ground. As usual, some conjecture into what the going descriptions are and what the reality is for French racing virtually every time it comes around to UK eyes like mine. But I think Turf Track's got in there Sunday morning and called it, pretty much good to firm. Correct me if I'm wrong. Oishi Murphy rode this Japanese horse and came out after and said he's very ground dependent, so he won't want any rain between now and the first Sunday in October. But yeah, what did you make of the Prix Foy?
Yeah, I think it was a fantastic race. It definitely was. It was like, as you mentioned, to have all of those, names in one race is fantastic. Obviously, if we'll look at the winner first, because I think that's fair enough. He was a bit slow away. He jinked a little bit out the stalls, and he was wrestling with him for the first few strides. But after that, he found a fantastic rhythm. He was fantastic to watch. I think he stuck his nose right behind the tail of Sozi, and I think obviously Oisin would know that is the one that if they're gonna get into the arc and understand where they are in regards to a position in the arc, obviously Sozi's not a bad yardstick.
Absolutely.
That. So look, he's proven he can be quick enough over 2,400, which is the 12 furlongs. Obviously, he's won over further, so we know that the stamina wasn't going to be a problem for him, as you mentioned. The ground was, but maybe the speed might have caught him out. Now, don't get me wrong, like over a mile 4, horses aren't necessarily, they are quick, but they're not, lightning, as some would say. So that was the only question I had, and he kind of put that one to bed. So I think he's really earned his go at it. And to be at 12-1 now, I think that's a very fair price for him. The one thing we do have to bear in mind is obviously he is an older male horse, which means he will carry all of the weight and then a little bit more as well. If we're speaking around Mini Hawk, who we'll talk about later, he will carry less. He will carry a bit more, than Avonshore, who will carry obviously a little bit more than Mini Hawk, given her age as an older female as well. So that may be the thing that sort of hamstrings him a little bit. I think the jockey isn't a worry. I think he seems to get on really well with it as well. So I think that if you've got a good stick of a price on him, I don't think you're worrying too much in regards to that. So
I'd be worried about the ground.
Yeah, but look what happened last year. It wasn't overly bad last year. I was there last year, and it wasn't overly bad. So it's not been a we're working with the newest evidence that we've got in regards to that. And obviously, as you mentioned, the going stick and the penetrometer and the turf tracks, it's a fine mess. Let's put it that way when it comes to obviously ground in France and the translations that you get across. Even I, as staunch sort of French racing person, cannot sort of defend what they gave out on Sunday for the ground. Unfortunately, the Times said that, didn't it? Basically, let's put it that way. I think what was it? I think somebody put that the Moulin was the fastest Moulin this century or something along those kind of lines, which was, there you go. So, the going they gave wasn't overly fair.
I've got one to take out. Sorry, I've got one to take out at this point, and as we do it here on Races Now, I'm putting up a bet here because I've had my eye on this Almaqam, who hasn't been out a lot on UK shores this year because he just wants that little bit of dig in the ground. We saw him in front of Ombudsman earlier in May this year, for example. The ground was quicker than pretty quick by Longchamp standards over the weekend. I thought he ran a great race. I thought he was pretty much ridden as a question mark to get the trip. With that in mind, I thought that he did get the trip. He's obviously not finished too far behind. He was only beaten 2.5 lengths. I thought it was the perfect preparation for Almaqam. He had a lot of options. He could have gone to Germany over the weekend. They had the Irish Champion Stakes in mind, possibly. They had the British Champion Stakes in mind, but they clearly ran in an ARC trial for a reason. And I thought he got the trip. And on the assumption that I know it's 4 weeks away, on the assumption that it's going to be softer ground conditions than it was last weekend, but in 4 weeks' time over track and trip, I think he's a bet at 50 to 1. So there you go. That's going to be an official YouTube Racers Now selection from me, 50 to 1. You can talk about the rest of the field, Hump, that may include Almaqam in the Foy.
Yeah, we might as well go through it. We'll go to him while you've put him up. I found somewhat a funny comment. I think it was in, I can't remember what publication it was in, maybe the TDN, something along the lines that said that William Buick said, if you're going to take your chance, do it this year. Unfortunately for Ed Walker, that was 2 hours before William Buick rode Qualificar to win the Prix Niel, who he may be retained to ride come Arc Day. So he may be on the hunt for another jockey come the time as well. But there you go. I think
he's had plenty of different jockeys on Almaqam, from anyone from Safi Osborne, Tom Marquand, Buick, Moore, Murphy, Schumacher, and Buick again. So he'll have plenty of takers, I imagine.
There you go. But yeah, I found it funny that the latest man to ride it may not possibly get the ride again. But there you go. I think Ed Walker has every reason to be pleased with that. He's had a light campaign. He's mentioned that a few times. Obviously, not venturing up to the arc distance before. He wasn't beaten far in regards to that. The one thing to caveat that was, obviously, he said he's had a light campaign, but he had a bit more time off than Byzantine, who obviously went past him a little bit easier than we thought it would. But then you factor in he's 4 times the price of Byzantine, and is that going to be the same come Arc Day? Who knows? Obviously, if the ground turns, then you can flip those. You can probably shorten that distance again into God knows how long. So I think he's got I think at 50 to 1, looking given the right conditions, and if everything's met that they want to be met, then they said they're going to speak to the owner, but I don't think the owner would have many complaints in regards to putting putting him in. So from that point of view, he's probably not a bad angle to go at. If you want to go through
what you've got to say about Saucy, to be honest with you, because this horse was forfeit in the Arc itself last year, has gone off 8-5 favourite for that Foy over the weekend, which was a deep renewal. He won a couple of the early Group 1s earlier in the season, the Prix de Hispan and the Gannet, in nice fashion, beating some good horses. But then he kind of blotted his copybook when he came over for the Eclipse at Sandown, which was a target. They knew they had the possibility of quick ground. They got quick ground, and he finished 6 of 6 that day. Kind of the forgotten horse, if you like, coming into this. What did you make of his performance off that break in the Foy?
I was going to go back. You kind of cover what I was going to say in regards to the sort of the Ganni and the Ispahan, but they were pretty much gimmies for him. Really, they were kind of early season gimmies for him. So we won't.
Should have been winning.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you can read too much into them. I think they had I've written down here. What was it? They went to Sandown and just had a complete nightmare. Everything went wrong in regards to the weather, the trip, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Given the time again, I think they may have swerved that and gone to something like, I don't know, maybe something like the Grand Prix de Saint-Cloud, one of these kind of races where, Alpinista won that, Wallgeist won that, Trebs won that. So all these kind of arc winners that are in and around to have a go at that. Look, I don't think it was overly bad, but it didn't scream arc winner to me. I know Farb obviously would like to leave a little bit on a horse like that to try and build them up to the big day. I don't think that's a secret in regards to that, but he will have to come on probably a bit more than I thought he would need to in regards to wanting to win the race. Obviously, you got to think as well that they're probably not going to have the jockey that they want on. In regards to Max Guillon's probably going to pick Aventure because obviously the performance that they put through. It's not a given, it's not a confirmed thing, but the chances are, you go with your best chance, and it doesn't seem as though the best chance, as we can see in the market, is with Aventure. So you kind of then, I know a few people don't put a lot into jockeys, but I think if you're looking for a jockey that, they don't come better than Max Guillon, and obviously he knows all the horses. So I was in truth, I was a little bit disappointed with Sozi. I think they gave him every chance, and I just don't think that he either didn't take his chance or he wasn't ready to take his chance on this occasion. So look, he's look what price is he now? 12 to 1. I know if it was me, and you could maybe be a little bit more generous in regards to the punter from there, but look, he could make a monkey out of me. He may say in this, he may not be jockey dependent, I don't know, but yeah, I did struggle a little bit with him with that. And then another horse from the race I struggled with was Los Angeles as well.
Yeah, I was disappointed. I tweeted last week that I thought Los Angeles was possibly, I know I've already used this term, but possibly the forgotten horse for the Arc, because he is in recent years, and I follow Aidan. SD accused me of it last night. Aidan O'Brien bingo. I get involved always. I don't always come out on top, really, actually. But Los Angeles to me is the most deliberately targeted Ballydoyle horse at the Arc I could remember in my time, and I'm talking 15 years. Now, I know they've won it in that time with the likes of Found, but to me, like they've done with Mini Hawk, I think they get to July, and then if they've got a horse that they deem good enough at that stage to be an Arc horse, then they start planning from there. That's absolutely fair enough. There's plenty of classics to be won over on British shores. But Los Angeles, after I think he was 4th or 5th last year in the Arc, his whole yeyear, unlike any other Ballydoyle horse this year and from a few other years, has been rounded, massive circle around that first Sunday in October. And I was just disappointed with him. I mean, he's returned a few weeks ago because he had a bit of a break, midsummer break. His return in that Royal Whip Group 3 was 4 to 7 was a borderline joke. And I was expecting him to be more forward for the Foy, given that Byzantine Dream has come off a break, given that Almaqam's come off a break, given that Saucy, this is very much a trial for him. I was expecting Los Angeles to be better, but I just don't know how they're riding in Hump, to be honest with you. I know he had Christoph on, but he knows how to follow instructions. He was leading. I don't know why they have to insist on leading on horses that don't need to lead. You could make the same argument for Whirl over the weekend. You could make the same argument for Yamborogal in the King George at Ascot that was a disaster. Why are they insisting on trying to lead on it? I was just generally disappointed. That's a long-winded way of saying I was disappointed. I tweeted last week that he might have been the best value in the race at 28 to 1. I've clearly been proven wrong. He ain't winning no Arc.
I was just unsure what they want this horse to be, really. I'll be honest with you. I've got no idea what they want it to be. I think when looking through it, it seems like 10 furlongs in the summer seems like his optimum kind of thing, really. His win in 12 furlongs was over Illinois, where the race was basically set up for him at York and the Voltage. Yeah. And then the other one was what now looks like a horrendous looking Irish Derby, where I think he beat Someway. Into second, and he's, Menuisier and Someway have had a bad relationship since then. So I'm just not sure what I want him to be. And I think like you said, he's, you can never, well, not that you can never rule Aidan O'Brien out, but I think if you're going to rule him out of something, I think this might be the first time that you might rule him out of something. Yeah. I just don't know what they want him to be. And he's not even a consideration, is he? Let's be honest.
Yeah, well, that leads me, Hump, to the Prix Niel. This is for the 3-year-old boys, and this is where I need you the most, because most of the horses in here I don't know a lot about. I do know that this Leffard, who was sent off just under the 2 to 1 favourite for the Niel over the weekend, had won the Grand Prix de Paris or something like that a few weeks ago, when a bit of an outsider in that race. Bay City Roller, yeah, fair enough, has been highly tried this year in the UK. But hasn't done any winning and hasn't got any Group 1 form, that is for sure. And it was a bit won by this, are you going to say the winner, Hump? But it was certainly new to my Qualificar, for Godolphin. Buick riding there for Fob. What's the Barcelona's not retained by Godolphin in France anymore, is he? Because he's got the Aga Khan job, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. So
do they just go best available, or
they mixed it up? So obviously, Farb has his sort of stable jockey currently at the minute, which is Pouchan, and he will do a bit. But then Demuro rode it in the Deauville race, the Guillaume Dornano, which involved a horse that we might talk about later on as well. Yep. One thing I wasn't sure of was the distance with regards to this horse. Like obviously, out of Lope de Vega out of qualify, it's that's pretty solid, middle distance. That's pretty solid middle distance form, isn't it? Really, let's be honest. But obviously, you never know until you see it. And he was very good. What one thing I will say is he was very good, considering the pocket that Buick wanted to put him in and then wanted to try and get him out of again. He didn't have things his own way. He got no run in the straight, but he made it up pretty much hand over fist. Visually, very impressive, as we know. And that's probably what's got him into the top tier of the betting in regards to that, from my point of view. But the Niel just really doesn't have a very good record when it comes to the Arcs. You have to bear that in mind.
It was a short neck in front of a horse who's rated 110 in Bay City Roller. Exactly
that, yeah. But the one, given sort of his position in the market now, look, he's earned his spot, and there's been a couple of firms that have blued him on Odds Checker today, but 16 to 1 is probably about right. The one, we'll go back to Leffard, who I thought was a very, very interesting runner. And I'm trying to work out what they were trying to do with this thing, to be honest. They dropped him so far out the back, he was nearly on the centre court of Roland Garros. He was so far back. He couldn't, if they'd zoomed in, you wouldn't have seen him for probably 80% of the race. And that's it. That was even into the false straight. They were still sort of 5-6 lengths off the back into the false straight. And look, the way it worked out, it got a bit elbowy down the straight. You could see that with Parachutis, with Qualificar. They ended up sort of pushing him sort of 6 or 7 wide. But if you take that in isolation, you look at sort of where he finished, and it was mainly to the eye and to sort of, he was the quickest horse over the last 3 furlongs. And De Muro just did not get stuck into him at all. He really, really nursed him home. He was catching and catching and catching. And look, he was just there. And it's something in my mind. I just looked at him and I thought, well, Rouget he knows how to win this race. Obviously, he's done it before. That's those kind of horses as well. Ace Impact. He's got very good form in the race, and he will use this as a trial. Rouget, he was, if it had been a week, like obviously the trials are a week earlier than they would normally be, and I think Rouget or the owner came out and said, look, if it had been this weekend, they wouldn't have run him, and they would have gone straight to the Arc, or they may not have run him at all. So, look, I think they're all in with this horse, and I think, look, it's going to be interesting to see how he does. I'm very, very interested. I think is he as big as 66 to 1, or I think you can get a wild price on
66 to 1.
Yeah, I think that's
66 to 1. Yeah,
I think that's a wild for a Jean-Claude Rouget runner. He's not the best he is, Jean-Claude. He's still coming back from obviously his health issues. He shut his satellite yard down in Deauville. Now he's basically back to where he came from. He had all that kind of shenanigans with the Renier stuff last year. Look, the owner's dream is to win the Arc. Obviously, Le Havre. This horse is one of the last ones out of, one of the last out of Le Havre. So I think they are fully all in for this, and I think I don't think you can discount him. And I think they may have been an overreaction in regards to the price. A Grand Prix de Paris winner, look again, it's there. Maybe it's 66 to 1 is staring us in the face a little bit. He didn't perform in the Jockey Club, that's fine. But to be where he is, and to be where he was in the Grand Prix de Paris, I think he's a bit overpriced. Yeah, I think he's a bit overpriced.
Take it from the man that knows the French game. He's saying that Leffard is overpriced at 66 to 1. We mentioned earlier, Hump, the everyone's favourite Group 2, the Prix Guillermo de Ornano. I've made an absolute mess of that. But yeah, mid-August. This is the one that who was the winner of a couple of years? Ace Impact. Ace Impact win this race. Economics ran in this race.
Won it last year. Yeah.
So you mentioned the Qualificar from earlier. Well, he was odds on for this everyone's favourite Group 2, and he was 3.5, nearly 4 lengths behind this Alohai Ali, another Japanese contender. That one's going straight here, I imagine, 25 to 1. Another Japanese contender. There's a third one that we're going to come on to as well.
Yeah, so I think it was either today or recently they actually confirmed Alohi Ali. I've probably butchered that name. I'm not very good.
That sounded right to me. That sounded good.
But yeah, they basically confirmed that today. Obviously, it's interesting because I think they're going to be. Look, he was visually incredibly impressive.
Yeah,
in that Guillaume d'Ornano. Obviously, the track at Deauville is very, very different to the the undulations that you're going to get at Longchamp. Obviously, it's the other way around. So it's a take it as what you will, but those extra 400 meters that from the d'Ornano to this, I don't think they'll make that much of an impact at all. And was this the ultimate aim? Obviously, I think so, to travel all this way to do all the preparation they did. I think it's definitely been on the agenda for a long time. I know he is. There's a couple of firms that are 25s there as well, so we'll see how we get on. But
it's mad though how they can bring a horse from Japan that's never won a race in Japan ever, has had 3 starts, comes over as a midsummer break, comes over here, virtually unknown in a Group 2, wazzers up bang impressive. Twitter went off that day because not many people would have watched it live, like me, but would have seen the clip of this Japanese horse basically making every yard in a decent enough Group 2. Next thing you know, he's a bang art contender. I like the prep. What I also like about the Japanese, what they've done over recent years, Oshie Murphy earlier, Christophe Lemaire here, is that when they bring the Japanese horse over, they are being ridden by European jockeys. I think that certainly increases their chances of finally winning the Arc eventually.
Yeah, I think that's, if you want to be in the politest way, we look to Sakai from last year and Shin Emperor in the Arc. He got himself in a bit of a mess there as he did at Leopardstown. So look, it is the safest option, isn't it? I think there's no doubt about it. To know the track, to know the contours, to know the way that we ride over here is a huge help. And Lemaire, he's been in Japan for a long time, Christophe Lemaire, but he was, I don't think Longchamp's not changed in the time that he's been there. Let's put it that way. The standard may have changed, but the ground is, and the way that it's run is pretty much the same. So, yeah, it's going to be It's going to be interesting. Like I said, those 400 meters, he looked like he could have skipped those, and they still wouldn't. He could have run with 3 legs, and they still wouldn't have caught him. So, what we've got to look at in this race is there's 2 at the top of the market. They're commanding a lot of the market, and then after that, you are
double figures.
There's a lot of big prices that could run very, very well.
Yeah,
and this is definitely one of them. Look, 3-year-old male. He's going to get a bit of weight from Aventura as well there in regards to that kind of thing as well. So you've got to think, is it going to be their year? We say it every year. Is it going to be their year? Who knows? But I don't. Based upon what we've seen, I know obviously it was beating Rashabar, but it beat Rashabar running backwards. So yeah, I think they've got a live one. Yeah,
I've missed one off the ticker. Really, we're going to talk about a couple of horses now that didn't run at the weekend. They ran against each other last time. Mini Hawk's in there at 5-1. I think she splits opinion a little bit. She was workwoman-like in the Irish Oaks, but did was up in a 4-runner Yorkshire Oaks. We wasn't really going to learn anything there. It's easy to say. It might be somewhat lazy to say, but I think she will prove better against better opposition. I said that before the Curragh. I said that before York, and I'm still saying it now. And that might involve against the boys as well. This is obviously going to be deeper waters. But yeah, I think she's reasonably versatile ground-wise. I don't think she would want it extremely alpinista soft. But she's obviously there as a bank contender. Would I be backing her at 5-1? Probably not, because I think definitely all the horses we've touched on today, possibly other than Los Angeles, are likely runners, and I think we'll all stand their ground. I think we could start getting into some that are entered this weekend, the likes of White Birch and Zoran, etc. Shin Emperor this weekend as well. But they've got this weekend to get through. So I think everything we've touched on is probably going to run, particularly as they've run in trials. That's obvious. So yeah, I thought Mini Hawk was worth a mention there. The other one that was second behind Mini Hawk at York was Estrange, and I've actually missed Estrange off this bottom ticker list. She's 25-1 Estrange, and she's been talked about. Her reputation is held in higher regard than her form on the track that we've seen so far. But when she ran second behind Mini Hawk at York, she looked to me the most I hate this ground performance I think I've ever seen with my own eyes. Honestly, it was good to firm at York. She probably shouldn't have even been running, as she was bouncing up and down like it was a trampoline in the last final couple of furlongs there at York. Clearly wants to get her toe in, and they've talked her up about an art course, even from earlier in the season when she was winning a Group 3 at Haydock in May, the last day of May. She won a Group 3 at Haydock against her own sex, 13-8, and they was talking to then about the Arc. So they must mean business with her. I think, again, ground dependent. I think she's a bank contender, and just watch that one back at York. It was so obvious. She just hated the ground. She borderline shouldn't have even been running that day. I don't know whether you had an opinion on that one.
I never got the hype. I just didn't. I think obviously
it is more hype than form. Definitely,
they've done a lot of talking with this horse, and I think that rightly so. I mean, you can only beat what's in front of you and all this kind of things. But I'm struggling.
I think she is. I think she is, because not a lot's going to change in this market now, unless there's obviously non-runners. Don't get me wrong, but not a lot's going to change in terms of on the track between now and then. I think she could be 40, 50, 60 on the exchange on the day, basically forgotten about. and it might get a couple of quid from me. That's a strange. So, final question then, Hump. If I had to ask you right now, who is going to win the ARC of 2025? What is your answer?
I
don't
would.
want any fence sitting. I don't want any
No. I think I think if I could have an each way go, I would say Leffard at 66 does feel overpriced.
Yeah, that's fair. I like that.
If you go back and watch the race again, just watch those finishing stages. Don't think they put him in the race. They used it as a trial, and he was coming home. He wasn't coming home with a wet sail, but he was coming home definitely with his sail up, ready to strike. Ready to be in more of a position come the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that Leffard is a chance, but there could be there's plenty in here with the chance.
No, I do like that one, and I think that a couple of things I would say about Leffard is that currently in the market it is a standout 66-1. It's generally 33-1, but we can only go on what's available in front of us. It's one that could move in the market, and as some of the what shall we call them? Some of the Irish champion horses come out or don't run, the likes of Whirl, Zoran, White Birch, Los Angeles, even to an extent, that are going to possibly come out of the ARC betting. That Leffard is only going to go one way in price, given that he's clearly got the profile for it, clearly an intended runner, and 66-1 pretty big. I think before we wrap up, I mean we've done well here. I mean Hump fancies one at 66-1. I fancy one at 50-1. The last horse that's going to be mentioned is the one I've already put up for the race, and we nearly forgot to mention, Kalpana. I put her up at 8-1. I thought her run in the King George was absolutely perfect for a horse that might have the ARC on their agenda. I think she's better with softer underfoot conditions, which she should well get in October. So I was all looking forward to her running the September Stakes, a race that Enablers used at Kempton ahead of winning the ARC. A couple of times. She was 4-7-ish against Gio Velotto, who I did say on last Thursday's show with SD is no more. It was no penalty kick, but it was disappointing. Kalpana. I don't know whether you wanted to close out with comments on her.
Yeah, the air came out the balloon very quickly, didn't it? Yeah. Saturday afternoon, it really did. With 400 meters to go, 2 furlongs to go, you'd have. I mean, I didn't think what she touched in that. Obviously, Gio Velotto was hard at it, and Keane came up alongside, and he went enough with this. He went enough with the whip as well. So you can't argue that he was soft on her. He didn't want to have a go on her, that kind of thing. Look, yeah. Was she a bit overhyped based upon what she actually achieved this season? I don't know. She got weight in the Tactical Cup, couldn't win. Pretty Polyform's not turned out what it should. Not as stellar as what it looks like now. Obviously, World sort of underperforming. She got weight off Calandagan again. Couldn't see that out. Calandagan came past her. And now, obviously, he can't win in this. But, now this, she's not won since, what was it, Champions Day last year? And that was a below-par race as well, really, if you think about it, the Fillies and Mers race. So,
well, she might end up back there this year. I think that's basically the conclusion of her disappointing weekend. Options are now back open. So we've gone from the ARC being the number one destination for it to options being back open. But yeah,
I think 16. I think 16s is it's hard to argue against that price. And obviously, it's a huge drift. From what she was, but it's a deserved drift, and obviously with potentially some different things on the horizon. Let's see.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've covered virtually all the runners worth covering there. Like I say, I'm putting one up at 50-1. Hump likes one if he had to make a choice at 66-1 in Leffard. So, we're trying to cover some value for you there as well. I'm sure we'll be back ARC week. You're going this year, I imagine, Hump, as usual.
It's up in the air, but the likelihood is, yeah.
Yep, so we'll be back the week of the ARC, which is the first week in October, and we'll have all the Group 1s covered that week because there is plenty of them. So thanks for joining us on Races Now, and thanks for Hump joining us to talk to us French racing. Thank you very much.